I'm Vicky Butler-Henderson and welcome to the Historics Auctioneers Refuel podcast. Now, in this episode, we are looking at the truth behind auctions. Yes, by the end of this, you will know exactly what goes on under the covers here at Historics. Wow. How sellers strategize, how buyers win or lose, and the biggest mistakes people make when bidding on cars. It's so exciting.
Buying or selling a classic car? Head to historics.co.uk or click below for a free valuation.
So yes, indeed, and welcome to the latest instalment of our Refuel podcast. Now, I am joined by an esteemed member of the commissioning team, a hill climber in his youth, which wasn't that long ago, and a hugely respected car specialist here. It is James Good.
Thank you very much.
Hugely respected.
Great intro. Hill climbing cars rather than climbing mountains.
Oh yes, yes, which with your physique you could also have done.
Svelte.
Also, we are joined as ever by the auction expert, Matthew Prudy.
Oh, mainstay. Hello, everybody. Now, if you are following us on YouTube or on Instagram, click the like, the bell buttons. Make sure you follow us everywhere you possibly can. The more you follow and watch these particular podcasts and any filming we do, the more we can do them, of course. So please do like, subscribe across all channels.
We'd be very, very, very grateful. Thank you. So in this podcast, we will be peeling back the covers of the world of auctions and myth busting, and we will be diving into why some cars fail to find a home, and also what makes a car sell. And of course, my world famous quiz. Can we call it that yet?
We can. I mean, as of last year, I was definitely in the lead over Tom, so James has got a bit of a...
Quite good at pub quizzes. I haven't got a drink here this morning.
Well,
I'll give it a go.
We can sort that out.
Thank you very much.
We're very hospitable here.
Thank you.
Okay, so our big main topic then, the truth about auctions. First of all, what is an auction house?
So there's a fair bit of muddy in the water over the last couple of years, probably since COVID, and that's a lot to do with the inception of online auctions beyond what was always there, i.e. eBay. Because obviously that's been around for a long, long time. Everyone's used it, everyone understands it. And then during COVID, when everyone was unable to move around, the likes of collecting cars, even Car and Classic, a lot of these guys then started up online auctions. That's not what an auction house is. That is a different, completely different thing. Yes, it uses the same ideals, but it's not an auction house. An auction house is much what you see here. It's a physical auction with an auctioneer. It's live. And we act under a different set of laws to the guys that advertise. Am I right, James?
You're absolutely right. But also for the general public, it's much more, this is a theatre.
Correct.
It's a machine. It's an animal. But they love it because it's a theatre. They can give their pride and joy to people like us. They can come and see it all shiny. And then they can watch the whole process of the day with a drink and a friend beside them or a group or whatever, and watch their pride and joy go through and be sold and hopefully fetch good money because there's 1,000 people here or whatever, rather than online sitting at home on your own with a laptop and a cup of tea.
I mean, in effect, we are... what's the word? We're not agents. We're facilitators for the sale. So you're a client. You're looking to sell your car. You've had it for many years. You want to sell it for the very best amount of money. And also you want to sell it with a bit of grandeur, a bit of pomp, rather than just letting it slip away to someone on a trailer. So you would contact an auction house. Now, the big auction houses, like us, we will have physical auctions, and therefore we're invested in getting the most amount of possible eyes on, which is no different from anyone else, in fairness. I'm not going to say that's not what anyone else tries to do. We then do the job for you. So we will come and inspect the car at your doorstep. When I say inspect, we have a good look at what we think the car's worth. We'll assess the value. We'll speak with you. We'll then, in effect, from that point on, take over the mantle of marketing, photographing, cataloguing that car to bring it to such a sale like this. Now, the physical auction houses, the auction houses will all do similar things with all certain degrees of success and certain particular parts of the marketplace. But the idea then is that the car is then live, and it is low. It has got to be live if it's a physical auction house. Not an online auction, not timed. We do those, but they're different. And then on the fall of a hammer, bang, car is sold, contract is sealed, changes hands, and at that point, you as the owner are no longer the owner. But auction houses can vary massive degrees, you know, from guys that sell £50 million cars down to guys that sell £5,000 cars. We're quite eclectic.
But also, it's down to the character of the person. It's like selling a house. You know, if you don't like the estate agents valuing your house, you're not going to give it to them.
I don't like any estate agents.
Well, don't sell your house.
Oh, stay put.
Stay in the tent.
Yes.
But we facilitate, you know, a platform for people to be able to bring their car to sell it, and hopefully what we set up here lays that foundation for them to achieve the highest possible price where people can physically come and see it. Whereas online, obviously, you miss out totally on all of those factors, and I think that's still a massive issue with the online against an auction house like us. You know, we do something which an online will never be able to do, and I think there's still value in what we do.
So we sort of put on a show, because I always think coming to an auction like we have here at Ascot is like going to one of the best car shows you can ever see, because you will see cars that you will never have seen in your life, and some which you used to own and some which you aspire to own.
Yeah. This BMW 3 litre CSL behind you, that doesn't go out to shows. That's not been seen. So by coming to here, you get to see that particular car. And there is also the weird and the wonderful as well.
We've got three right behind us. A DB6 manual gearbox.
I'm not sure what that is.
An extraordinary car which I've been looking at all morning. And can you race it? Probably no, it's got no roll hoop. You can't take it on the road because it's got no mud guards.
There will be some form of motorsport.
I would take that on the road at about 3 a.m. because it's got no lights, no mud guards, and who cares? The one behind me, 3-litre CSL, it's a phenomenal.
This is, you're right. It's one of the best car shows you can go to.
Eclectic cars, right behind us. It's amazing.
What about the laws then? How do we legally differ from a car dealership or anything else, sort of online marketplace?
Quite literally, you are running by a different set of laws. If you are running as an auction house, it is that fall of hammer. That drop of a hammer basically legally binds buyer and seller. Whereas if you're doing it online and you're not a live auction, you can't be bound by those same terms and conditions. You're more bound by the terms and conditions like a classified. Now, I'm no lawyer, so I don't want to go too heavy into this because I'll maybe correct it. You're welcome to correct me. But if it's an online auction, there is still that potential that someone says no. Now, they'll still have to pay some form of usually facilitator or commission fee to say no, but they can say no, is my understanding. Whereas at a physical auction, and it sort of comes back to that old joke of don't wave at your friend in the auction house. If you bid in a live auction and your bid is the end bid and that is the hammer falls, you are legally the owner the moment that noise is made.
The ownership automatically gets transferred at the bang of the hammer. That doesn't mean to say that 100% everybody pays and buys it because they say, oh, I didn't mean to, or I didn't want to put up my hand or something like that. There's always an excuse. But generally, Matt's right. You know, it is the bang of the hammer, legally binding in terms of the ownership transfers from you to me.
And what does happen then in that very small percentage of cases when somebody says, oh, my finger slipped on the mouse when I was bidding online during your live auction?
Now, to be absolutely black and white, legally, you know, tough luck, you own the car. Now, of course, we're not ogres. Most auction houses wouldn't be ogres. If it's a genuine mistake, and we feel there's a genuine mistake, we will try and work someone out of that position. But ultimately, most of the time that happens...
We have heard every excuse under the sun. So you lot out there, if you say a cat ran across the keyboard, my child dropped his spoon from his apple juice or whatever it is.
Why are you live auction?
If you think about it, we've already had it and we know about it. Believe you me, we know everything.
To be fair, what we've done now is, because it happens less in the room, obviously, you're more engaged, and also the auctioneer can see.
Yes.
The problem with the ability now for people to be watching and engaging in an auction live, which is great because it takes it worldwide, is that the auctioneer can't see that person at the end of the camera. And if you accidentally waved at your friend in the auction room, the auctioneer he's no fool.
Or she.
Or she. Well, you'd know, wouldn't you? If someone's gone, oh, hello, Julie, you're not going to go, there you go, £100,000.
Unless my mum and dad walked in.
Yeah. So generally speaking, in the room, we know the sides of that. But online, it's very difficult. So, which is why there's 2 steps, click through. We will try and help, but ultimately, legally, you're the owner of that car and you are due to pay that amount of money. And worst comes to the worst, the auction house, and I won't just say historics, because the auction house can then legally look for recompense on their commission that they've lost, but also the seller can then legally challenge that person. So it's not something you want to be doing lightly. Again, like a lot of things we'll go through today, you should be doing your due diligence. This isn't. It's not a silly game. It's people's assets.
It's not a minefield, but it's a well-trodden minefield.
Yeah.
Where every mine that is there, we know where they are. So
and we direct
can
you.
be dealt with.
Yeah, we direct you through it.
Yeah,
that's the key factor. But it's why
back towards the mine again.
But it's also why we've put onto online bidding now a deposit system.
Yeah.
The deposit system is no different from a hotel. It's just to stop you throwing a TV out the window. But basically, it's there in case you tell us your cat walked across the keyboard.
And what is the
and
deposit?
manage to click those 2 possible keys at the right time.
£1,000.
1,000. Okay, yeah.
And ultimately, that comes straight back. But in case there's that problem, we just have that little bit of protection for the seller.
Gives you the key to the door.
Yeah, and it comes straight back. It is a hotel-style deposit.
It may stop you opening that second bottle of wine when you've got your laptop there.
I do some of the auctioneering, which is a total honour for me. And sometimes when we have a provisional sale, which means that the money bid isn't quite what the seller wanted, so we have a bit of room to negotiate. Then when that car finally gets sold, a bit of paper comes back to me up on the rostrum, and I bang the gavel and say it has been sold, and therefore I am closing the sale and making the deal.
Do you know, not all auctions will do that.
Oh, okay.
And there's a reason for that, because you can sort of play a game with the provisional sometimes, whereas if you have no provisionals, if you don't bid, that's it, you're not buying it. But that's probably, I'd say, a position you'd love to be in, but it's not really feasible. And provisionals have become more prominent, I'd say, James. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, what it does, it facilitates the opportunity to be able to actually do the deal, in inverted commas, on that car or bike or boat or whatever it is. So you're within striking distance of buying it if you're the buyer, and also you're in striking distance of selling it, you're the seller. But there's a parameter where that provisional doesn't work, and then we don't take a provisional, obviously.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'll be here all night, all day,
totally.
and next week.
But it becomes incumbent on us as an auction house, because we have commission, which we'll go through in a bit. We've got commission, and we can therefore levy that commission to make a deal happen.
But we'll try and make something happen where possible. We'll sell it.
But it's become quite prevalent. I think that's because the market's moving. So the market swings quite a lot in a year, then you'll often find that reserves are adjusting and can't adjust quick enough. And thus, the sellers still want to sell, the buyers still want to buy, but the price in their heads has changed. So what will happen is that will go provisional, and then we'll have the discussion. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but it tends to work its way out. It doesn't. It's not ideal for an auction house. You want to sell everything on the hammer. One, because it's sold particularly well, but two, because from a completely selfish point of view, the auction house then has sold it well and has earned its full commission.
There are some auction houses where they don't do provisional, where it's just, lot 103 comes up, gone, and that's it. Never hear another word.
I think if you're in the privileged position
So
to
disappears.
have like one of ones and you're really at the top end here, you could probably do that. I think Sotheby's I've known to have done that, although I think there is still the conversations potentially to be had. But I think it's an important part at the moment. Ultimately, you've got a buyer and a seller there.
Particularly in this market, where, as with anything, particularly like auctions, where, the seller's trying to achieve that much and the buyer wants to buy down there. So you've got to meet in the middle, and that's where the reserve comes in. That's where the provisional helps to bridge that gap as and when we need to do it.
So let us talk about money then. How much does it cost to bring your car to auction, to buy at auction? What money does the auction house get?
Okay, so I'll talk from a historic's point of view, but many in this sphere are similar. So there's usually an entry fee. From a historic's point of view, that's the only thing you would ever pay if we didn't sell the car for you. And in our case, it's £250, of which most goes to a photographer who goes out and photos and videos the car. That's the entry fee. Done. That's it. Car's registered. As long as we're happy reserve, you're happy reserve, we're in. We then, and again, pretty much the same as every auction house, will work on commission. Now, the seller's commission is negotiable. Now, it depends on the car you've got, because if we really want it, we'll have that conversation. But there is always a conversation with what the commission is. Our standard commission is 10%. We don't like to deviate from that, because ultimately we feel like we're going to do the job and do it well.
So should we take a car, for example, that is worth £50,000? You've put a price on it that it should make £50,000. So we use that as our example.
Exactly that. Okay, so in a £50,000 reserve at 10%, so if it hammers at £50,000, less percent, sadly, less VAT, but VAT only on the commission, because that's the service, not the car. And obviously there was £250 paid on the actual entry fee. There will always be an estimate, as you all seen in the guide. That will be usually, and it differs from different auctions. A lot of auctions put the reserves at the bottom of the estimates with art, antiques, so on. Cars tends to be different. It tends to be somewhere within the middle, and that's because of the commission that we often levy to sort of make a deal happen. But that's it from a seller's point of view. That's the cost that's emitted from it. Now, I'm going to be absolutely honest. If you've got a £2 million car and you come and speak to an auction house in this sphere, you can be very much negotiating your commission. Now, if you've got a £15,000 car, probably less likely, because it costs, if you look above you, an awful lot of money to put on these big auctions. So whereas if it's in a warehouse and we're running them through, there's a different set of parameters. But here we've got to pay for all these people, this building, and to, in effect, bring that crowd to sell cars particularly well. So there's always a bit of conversation to be had, but I think if you base your figures on that, that's the ideals of what it costs you to bring it to auction and sell it at auction.
And James, could you talk us through the buyer's side of things?
The buyer's commission is non-negotiable, and they pay 12% of the hammer price. And obviously there's a VAT on the commission amount there and not on the cost of the car. So across the board, whether it's £1,000 car or 8 million, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a flat 12% across the board. That's what every buyer pays. Non-negotiable, full stop.
And do you know how that differs with sort of online marketplace and others?
We do some online ourselves, which is sort of a separate arm of the business. And online is a lot cheaper. And no one's going to hide that from you. It is, of course, cheaper. It's no different from putting your car on Auto Trader. You know, it will cost you £50 and there you go. The difference should be that if you're coming to the full physical auction, your expectations is you're going to achieve more because you're in such an atmosphere. If your car isn't going to make more at auction, then you're probably worth weighing up whether it's worth selling it in a different way, whether it's private, dealer, so on and so forth.
But we are also probably one of the most reasonable in terms of the buyer's commission in our marketplace. You know, some of the others do a scale, some that are 15% and more. So we're just across the board on one fee.
Going to arts, antiques and so on, you're talking 25% commission on buyers.
I'm talking some of the other bigger competitors,
and bigger
who charge a lot more, and a lot more to even register. I mean, one of the top ones, I mean, you'd be paying probably £500, £1,000 just to register to come in if you want to buy.
I like to think if you do a deal on selling a car, the reason for the commission should always be outstripped by the value in which it can achieve over and above if it's sat on your driveway and sold as a private seller. That's the aim.
And if you want to come as a spectator and just have a lovely day out, you buy a catalogue, which is a lovely thick brochure with all the photos of all the cars, and that gives you access for two people, and that's £30?
£30. Two people come in, and you can literally enjoy, as you say, one of the best car shows you can have, really. And the excitement of seeing what they're selling for sometimes.
Yes,
and you can have a beer,
and
a glass of wine. I mean,
but you can't quite yet.
And I'm staring at it now, so, you know.
Admin fee. This has been touted around some places.
Yeah, so it's a common misconception. There is no admin fee for a buyer to purchase a car at auction. It's absolute rubbish. What we charge is a commission. The commission is a transparent profit margin. Now, if you sell with a dealer a car for £20,000, he may sell it for £30,000, take £10,000 out of that. You won't know, and it's more power to him. He's a dealer. That's how he makes his money. You've got to turn his lights on. Some cars he'll make nothing on. We have to be transparent. That is one of the auction laws. So everything is transparent. You know exactly what we've earned out of that car, and you know going in, coming out. There's no admin. The only element of any auction that you can really put to admin would be the entry fee from the seller, which again covers predominantly a photography session with the professionals, and then a small amount of money for paper for the catalogue. But there is no admin for a buyer. That's just rubbish.
Right. When it comes to being transparent, we run checks on the cars, and you explain how we check a car when it comes in.
So this will ball back to a problem we had before Christmas. There was a Ferrari F430, which some of you will have seen online, and I'll defend it to a point, but I'll also accept that there were some faults. The car came in, and it turned out that car had mileage discrepancies. Now, I back-checked this because what was highlighted to me was that we didn't do enough due diligence and didn't treat the problem correctly. There was a bit of the way in which we acted, it wasn't perfect, and we went back and apologised. No one would have ever been out of pocket on this. I'll make you absolutely certain on that. If there would have come up, someone had bought this car and we found the mileage discrepancy, that deal would have been reversed. We hold funds for 7 days for that very reason, in case there is an obvious legal way in which we say that's not
14
right.
days.
Was it 14 days? Sorry, 14 days. In this instance, we actually did a HPI check and an NMR check on this car. Nothing came up. Now, what someone else did was they did it with another checker, I can't remember who they're called now, and that found that there was a mileage discrepancy. Now, if that would have all been purchased and all would have gone through, actually HPI would have been on the hook for that because they've given the all clear through the NMR register. In this instance, it didn't sell. Our negotiator really didn't sort of follow through well enough and communicate well enough, but we do those due diligence checks. Everything that goes through the auction is HPI checked. And the NMR is part of the HPI check, and the HPI has always been the sort of stalwart of how to check your car to make sure that they're not stolen, they're not damaged. And if they are, they're transparently listed in that respect. But that's all done, and obviously the guys like James, they do know their cars, they are going out to see them. The descriptions are the difficult part, because to be descriptive of a car is no easy feat. That's why the descriptions are there, really, to get people to come to the auction. They're not there to sell it.
Transpose onto paper, like the catalogue, what the information that we are provided by the vendor. We just transpose that onto paper, and then it gets checked by the vendor. So that's all we do, and any information and any detail is provided by the vendor to us. And the checks that we do is fairly basic, really, and that's what we rely on. And obviously, if once it's published or somebody buys a car, and there's found a discrepancy, and the vendor hasn't told us a discrepancy which he or she knew about, then there's a problem and there's comeback, obviously.
But it's difficult, isn't it, when you go through sources?
It's very difficult.
Regularly.
Yeah. It's very difficult
Nothing comes
because we are reliant, and not everybody is 100% squeaky clean. Let's face it, that's life.
Yeah, we look for these things, but it is ultimately, and this is one thing anyone should take away from it, is when you purchase at auction, and that's across any auction, it is your responsibility to check that lot. We provide 3 days for viewing at great expense. We provide the paperwork, the car. We welcome inspections. We don't get enough.
No.
Honestly, we don't get enough. We welcome inspections through those 3 days. Check what you're buying, make sure you're happy with what you're buying, and then have fun on the rostrum buying it. It's
when it comes to the mileage, though, if somebody comes to you buying and you have nothing's been flagged up to you about the car, about the miles that it's been done, how would a normal person be able to check that?
And any normal person can go online and check mileage with various different sort of checks. This particular one we had in mind was an odd one because normally HPI would have all the information. Very odd that they didn't in this instance. But you can go on to, there's 4 or 5 car check places that will do these checks. Just pop a registration
number in.
Yeah, and if the car's had a discrepancy in mileage, it should have come up. You can also go on the government website, actually, which is how this one was flagged, which is fair comment. It was flagged through the government MOT. So you can pull up the last 10, 12 years, and it can show you the MOTs. And, of course, if they've jumped around, there's a mileage discrepancy. Now, sometimes it's an overzealous MOT inspection, and you can pretty much ascertain that. But sometimes they've had clock changes, and old cars do have clock changes. It's not...
They have engine changes too.
But it's normally documented, and as we always say, and we keep repeating to people, if you're buying a car, come and look at it, inspect it yourself, and have a look at the paperwork and go through it.
The amount of paperwork that you have on so many cars
it's all
amazing.
Here. We can answer the questions, and if we can't answer them, we'll get the client on the telephone. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
But if you're not coming, either send somebody else to look at it on your behalf, a professional or a family friend or whatever you want to do. Don't just rely on the fact you've just read something and put your hands in the air and say, well, there you go. Inspect it. That's it.
Perfect. What happens then if a car doesn't find a home?
It basically goes back to the vendor. Usually, 99.99999 times out of 10, it's because it was too much money in this current marketplace. Once in a while, it might be because, it could just be luck. It could be just people aren't paying attention. That's unusual. There's a lot of money that goes into marketing. Well, it's almost always because of the value. It will go back to the vendor. The vendor will have his choices. Do I want to try it again later in the year? Do I try a different form of advertising? But it's simple as that.
And that's not anything to do with an auction house. It's because the seller says, no, I am hanging out for
Exactly.
£60,000, whereas you've recommended it's worth 50, for example.
Yeah, and dare I say it, 9 times out of 10 we were right. But, ultimately, yes, you're right, James said earlier, but customers want the very best value they can. The misconception is set the reserve high and it will be achieved. It tends to be more the other way around.
I think
that
in
you need bidders.
days gone by, certainly with the company I used to work at, in a market was a much more buoyant situation than we are in today. You could put a reserves a bit higher, and you could sort of do a litmus test and try it, suck it and see sort of attitude and see what happens, and invariably it's sold. It doesn't work today. Everything revolves around the reserve, and we like to think everything behind us here, the reserves are pretty much as we had suggested to the vendor in terms of its value, because if we're going to value them high, nothing's going to sell. So everything will go back to the vendor. We won't make any money.
Yeah.
It's over £250,000 to run one of these auctions. So we can't pull in 150 cars that are too much money.
Each car is what costs us £750 to £1,000 to put in a car. That's what it costs the company, basic terms. So we have to, we have to justify obviously the prices that we are suggesting for these cars, for to be able to people to feel comfortable about, putting their hand up, basically.
Yeah.
It's all very negative, I know, but it's the
No,
reality. You need to know these things because that actually brings the joy. When you're well informed, you've done your homework, that's when you really can put your hand up and get excited.
Yeah. And I see when people buy a car and that they've wanted one, and they've sat on the on the back chairs and chatting to each other. Should we bid up another bid, and then the joy when they actually get it. It's so lovely.
It is wonderful. I mean, let's say all sorts of cars are offered at auction. The ones that you can see the joy in people's faces, and when there's a real battle in the room, crikey, if we could just encapsulate 150 of those on a day, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm not a lip reader, but I know when they've made a mistake because they look and go. And for one that they've gone a little bit further than they should have done.
And I love it. If the wife has been encouraging the husband, and then he realises that he's probably been a bit too much encouraged.
Well, we don't mind that.
No, that's very true. Anything else you want to discuss on that topic?
No, I think it's to say, just don't be too put off. This is just give you warts and all, but generally speaking, just do your homework. And also, all of these guys here, they are paid to answer questions. They are paid to give you the best advice they can. We will put you off a car if we think it's not the car for you. So just phone, speak, 99 pints out of 10, they will. Sorry, 99 out of 10.
99 pints out of 10.
Wouldn't mind that.
9 out of 10 times, they will give you the exact information you require. If they don't, they'll either tell you that we don't have that information.
Would you buy a house without asking a question?
Good point.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. Come on, we're big boys. We should be able to do this. Let's.
Big boys and girls.
We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So on to topic number 2 then of this particular podcast, the best and worst cars that have been through an auction in your opinion. Now between you must have commissioned thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cars?
Not
Hundreds of
hundreds,
thousands,
but
certainly thousands.
Yeah, lots.
I think I've done about 250 auctions now. So
Gee, yeah. Many, many, many cars.
Many of us say too many auctions for James. He should probably bow out.
I'm thinking of calling it a day. No, I'm only joking. I am joking.
What have been the worst cars that you have seen? Not necessarily through your own auctions, but through the system, and the best ones.
Do you know what the worst? I think the worst cars for auction at the moment are, not to sort of put anyone off, but it is that sort of and they're always the problem cars, the laggier modern classics that are sort of more supercars. They're the hardest cars to sell at the moment. The cars whereby the cost of repair is often the cost of the car. They're difficult. They're horrible for all auction houses at the moment, and I don't envy it. They're not great.
I can certainly give an example of both opposite ends of that spectrum.
Beautiful.
Oh, can we talk about the Mini at Dom's?
No. No, that's hilarious.
Yes.
No, I'll save that little gem.
No, you've got to do it.
No. I consigned a collection of bubble cars in
Oh,
previous
yeah.
companies some years ago. And
so bubble cars are the
bubble
small
cars,
sort of
small,
60s.
like the little peel that you saw Jeremy Clarkson try through the BBC studios. One of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
So
Heinkel
I had about
Trojans
10 of
and the
these
likes.
things. My boss at the time just said, "What on earth are you doing? They're ridiculous. They're just bathtubs with fiberglass and a wheel, you know." So I insisted that we took them. It all arrived on this great big low loader, and the worst one was literally, it looked like a bathtub with little baby wheels on it from a child's pram. It was horrific.
Did any of them have little tykes on them?
I promise you, it had nothing. I mean, it was just, everybody just said, "Well, we're going to fill it with water and put a lily pad in it or something." So we stuck them all in the corner, you see. And I just looked at it and thought, "Christ, what on earth have I done?" But the peel I knew was a good one. And my boss just said, he said, "Stick them in the corner. I don't want anything to do with them." The peel went through at £85,000, and he just went, "Wow."
Wow.
And then the bathtub came up. It was dreadful. You'd fill it with earth and put a primula in it or a geranium, and that fetched £20,000.
That's
bathtub.
this
The
is your-
whole
this is-
lot,
apparently this is
9
your
of
worst
them,
one.
fetched just shy of £250,000.
Amazing.
It was unreal, but that was the worst thing
Oh.
I've ever
Can you
consigned.
quickly educate me on what a peel is?
Peel is it's a 3-wheeler car, which you sort of you get in through the front door, and you just about squeeze in. It Clarkson was like that.
Yeah.
It looked like a marshmallow in a thimble.
Is it British
Literally.
built?
It's quite big
Yes,
for you, though,
British.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, I have seen one on the road. Shut up. I did hear that, by the way. I have seen one on the road in London. I mean, you wouldn't want to be hit by anything. You wouldn't even want to hit by a cat.
Cyclist.
You'd write it off. Anything or nothing.
when the
A
cyclist-
shoe.
it's when the
Somebody
cyclist looks at you and
somebody
it's like
threw a
that.
shoe at you. I think you'd probably end up in A&E.
Ah, brilliant.
But
well
they
done
are
you.
extraordinary. Well, no, they're
That's
great. But it
amazing.
was bloody awful. And then, I mean, the best one was a Gullwing Mercedes,
Yeah,
which
Mercedes-Benz.
was, and the story behind that, a girl came into the showroom and she wandered around, clearly not knowing anything about cars. She turned around to the manager there and said, I think my dad's got one of those. And he said, "What?" And it wasn't a car or anything like that. And he said, "Well, where is it?" She said, "It's in a garage up near Birmingham." So he went up to Birmingham. There's a whole rows of these garages underneath all these massive sort of tower blocks outside Birmingham city centre, and went to this thing with her mum and opened up this garage door, and inside was this Gullwing Mercedes, which the father had driven into in the late 70s and left it there, and the key was still in the ignition.
No.
So we had it dragged out by Roger the Wrecker. We literally pulled it out of the garage and put it in a transporter and took it to the Royal Horticultural Halls in London, where we sold it in November exactly as it was found. And this chap flew over from Texas to come and inspect it. He spent 6 hours going over this car, and we sold it for 700,000.
Oh.
So it was just an extraordinary story.
What did the mum and the daughter say?
Oh, that's
Did they-
all right then. They
Oh,
were
that's
absolutely
amazing.
gobsmacked. They just thought Dad's bought a banger.
Yeah. And where was Dad?
Oh, 6 feet under.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it was a great story, and honestly, it was a real. When somebody says I've got a barn find, you know, some people use it quite loosely these days. This wasn't quite a barn in the middle of Birmingham, but it was a garage find that you just very, very rarely see.
What else
A mini
is in those
slump.
garages?
Not quite the Schlumpf collection, but it was a mini Schlumpf.
Schlumpfette.
Well, there's probably less of that now. It used to be you could peer over gardens and
Yeah,
stuff. But now,
I bet you anything. There is still plenty
Oh,
of
still,
garages
yeah.
out there with little gems inside.
yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, the best things have been things like prototypes and the
Yeah.
really interesting cars.
A decent prototype,
Yeah,
not something knocked up in a
years
carpentry
ago
shed.
At Brooklands, I had an AC Zagato, which
Oh, yeah.
they only made a couple for shows, fully road functioning, and they never went into production. It was when AC were going to get going again. I think it was South African owned or something at the time. They were going to get going again. They got Zagato to make a lovely body. It had a Mustang running gear, I think it was. It was a all-up, pretty-looking car. Those sort of things to me are sort of what really get juices going, because it was one of two, but only one left. One was literally just, I think one car was at Geneva. This car, the other car was almost a shell, wasn't roadworthy. That's the sort of thing I like. Really, when you get down to those one of ones, you know.
How do you value a one of one, though?
That's where the fun comes
Very
in.
well. You have to sort of almost go back to, you know, like Matt was saying, AC. It's a classic name. Carroll Shelby. We all know that story. AC Ace, AC Cobra, blah blah blah, etc. That, you know, has something. It's a prototype. Everybody knows. If the prototype is something called a Ginola, You think, well, what is that? Is that a cereal?
Well,
is it a
sometimes-
car? Is it somebody from France? Is it so you've got to work it from there. If it's something nobody's ever heard of, it's not worth a great
Well,
deal.
you know straight away, if you've got one of one Ferrari in any verse, it's going to be
Oh,
worth
jeez.
fortunes.
Yeah.
But if you get a one of one, something that's obscure, or someone that there's only one because no one literally wanted it.
No.
But sometimes that plays in its favour, of course.
Yeah.
The car behind us they struggled like buggery to sell those when they were new. They made Lux versions, brought them over to the UK. They really couldn't sell them, but because of that, they're lower in numbers. They went up in value. But to value one of ones are
Maybe change the colour.
when
Maybe
it-
that was
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
No, I love the colour.
we do now, but back then.
I look like that colour, sort of on a Sea Link ferry.
But yeah, I think to value them is difficult. That's half the fun because you then you really get your teeth into it. Really, I
But
mean, if
also
you've got
a lot of
something
the
that's-
prototypes, Matt, don't forget, in some of them, do they run? Do they drive? Can you drive them? Are they actually registered? Some of them, the dashboards that we all see in these look beautiful. The dashboard on a prototype quite often looks like a piece of plywood with a few holes in it. So, can they be driven? Are they safe to be driven? Is it registered on the road? Has it got an MOT? You have to be a little bit careful because if you think how many prototypes go through the process, they take it back to the factory, they add something else, take it back on the road, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So,
There
good
you
to
go.
see.
Well worked. Many prototypes, potentially. Well, hopefully we are igniting some curiosity within you now to come to our next auction, which is Farnborough
Yes.
on May the 3rd. So
Yep.
come to that, or you can join us online for that one. So if you do come or you are thinking of buying, could you recommend a few things right now that are worth buying? And if we look at a couple of budgets, let's look at sort of 10 grand.
Right, it's a buyer's market
start
at the
with.
moment, especially at the lower end, realistically. Circa £10,000. I mean, I personally think that things like, maybe pushing it at 10, but some of the nicer sort of MGAs, non-twin cams, stuff like that, which stretched into the 20s when the market was particularly buoyant. Now, these cars are the same, they're just as good. I like a classic rather than something more modern in that respect. And I think for around that figure, if you can get one, it's not easy to get them. Go and find a peach.
MGA, MGB.
Yeah, but really good MGB.
MGB Roadster,
Yeah.
MGB GT, round about the 10.
Proper classic motoring, and you can have a lot of fun with that.
British
And there's
classic
loads of
motoring.
modern stuff at that
British.
price point, but the modern stuff, again, can be expensive to maintain. An MGB, an MGA, or a Triumph. Something really well, I'd say almost, dare I say it, something really well restored, not too far back.
But the parts are always readily available for those sorts of cars. They're
Well-
easy to maintain.
Yeah.
I've drove a couple of new MGs recently, including the Cyberster, which has got doors that go up to the ceiling, which is amazing. And I filmed it at the MG Owners Club, which is the biggest owners
Yes.
club for a single car marque in the world. And it was fantastic. And there they are producing kit for MGBs.
Yeah. I think
Brilliant.
that they're a good marketplace around
Yeah.
there. And actually, I think that's really good price point to be into classics. The next one, I bet you, is trickier.
Okay.
How much are we talking?
50 grand for the next. What would you suggest for the 50 grand mark?
You see, you some people say, well, I'd like to buy a Golf or whatever. No. 50
Bentley?
grand, I would... Sorry?
Bentley?
No.
Rolls Royce?
No.
No.
You see...
No, child.
No. Because you've got all the turbos and the Bentley Brooklyns and so on and so on, which are not 50. You've got the older Rolls Royces, which the older generation can't drive them, and the younger generation don't want to drive them. But you could buy those up to 50,000. You could buy an absolute beauty, and you just put a little electric pad steering unit behind the bulkhead, and you can drive it till you're 150 years old, like that. And they are fabulous.
Brilliant
50
tip.
grand, you'll buy yourself an absolutely beautiful Rolls Royce. Promise you. And I think it's a hidden gem and under the radar, because there are 10 to the dozen of them, and no one wants them.
I've got two thoughts at
Buy
that price
them.
point. I think something like 996, 997
Yes.
Turbo S.
May I go for the 997 over the
Ideally,
996?
but you might struggle to get it at the 50 if it's
Okay.
a Turbo S. But I think because if you look at what earlier incarnations of 911s have done, then I think it's a safe bet, very drivable car. It's not cheap, but it's also not too expensive to maintain, as long as you don't get things like carbon
Do
brakes.
check the service history.
And I think other than that, I think Again, a lot of XKs have dropped
Yes.
to that figure.
Yes.
That were right up. They were double this figure
Yeah.
not long ago.
Jag.
Sorry, owners. But
XK.
XK
they're
120s,
far- how
Roadsters.
easy? How much
Wow.
more? I mean, again, easy to maintain.
Yep.
Really easy to maintain. Lots of parts available. Achingly pretty. You look like you're driving a £150,000
But the
car.
120, 140, 150, all those engines are pretty similar, and they are bulletproof. Those Jag, you could thrash the nuts off that Jag
The reason I was looking around
every day, and it'll be fine.
I was looking around because you've got a lovely
It's brilliant.
red XK120 here, and I was thinking, do you know
Yeah.
what, about 50-ish, that's spot on. They won't drop much, they won't pick up much, but they're really good value motoring, proper classics.
50
Again.
grand, yeah, and also an E-Type. There are some E-Types you could buy. They're a bit lighter, perhaps a bit more tail-happy than an XK, funny enough. But nevertheless, you could buy yourself a very pretty car for relatively little compared to what they were some years ago, where you'd be paying 75, they're now 50. So
Gosh, that's-
yeah,
yeah,
the market's
good, yeah.
moved.
And then what one from each of you for about £100,000? If I'm looking to, invest.
It's
If
investment.
I
You
had-
want something on the way up.
If I could find a really nice concourse, say, by one of the famous names like a Hemmings or something, a 190 SL
Oh,
Mercedes. They're
Mercedes.
very pretty. They were the ladies' version of the 300 SL. That was where they were built. They're very attractive. And for £100,000, I think you'll get yourself an absolute corker.
and what year of make
50s.
is a?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, I'm looking at it, so I think something like the CSL up and coming, because it
That too.
still meets the requirement of age groups, sporty, but also not hugely over complex
Yep.
as per the normal more modern stuff. At £100,000, a lot of
Some
people
of the
are going to be.
Porsches.
Yeah,
Yeah, 911s.
930. If you can get 100 now,
11S,
you'd be doing
yes,
well.
yeah.
That's strengthened.
911S, if you can
Yeah.
find, it depends what sort of, entry level in terms of condition, concours level, where people leave them under duvets and don't drive them, so
Yeah.
they don't quite understand. It's never seen the rain. Well, must have seen the rain at some point. But,
It's a man of a thousand voices,
you know,
isn't it? Yeah?
there
very
are,
good.
Yeah,
you
have a
know,
conversation with himself.
we'll try that. I get so bored on
we?
my own. So, there is a... I was
Lovely.
trying to bring in sort of the classic side
Yeah.
of that. Matt's bringing the sports
Beautiful.
car side.
Yeah.
What we're trying to say is here there is quite a, like a quality street box
Yes.
full of all sorts of different things with one price tag. You can find these cars if you want to.
Yep. In a quality street box, what chocolate would you pick?
Toffee.
Sweet. The toffee round one or the toffee stick?
I don't care.
Okay, cool.
Stick.
I'm a
So
fudge.
much.
I'm a stick.
You're a stick.
Yeah.
Cool.
And what do you like? What do
Fudge.
you want? Fudge.
Yeah, have fudge. Right.
Okay.
It's quiz time.
That wasn't the quiz.
So as always, I like to bring a little bit of,
Like a prop.
musical element to it. I've got my children's.
Glockenspiel.
Well, it's not my children anymore. They are.
The chap that did Sky at Night, he was big on a
Don't
glockenspiel,
digress.
wasn't
But
he?
this podcast's gone on for about 3 hours already.
So, as soon as you know the answer, you need to bong. So, could we hear your red bong noise, James? Matthew?
Heidi hi, campers.
Heidi, hi! Apologies to anyone there for
Yeah, sorry about
any
that.
Heidi hi offences we've just caused. Okay, now then, so quiz time. Ready? Oh, yeah, sorry.
You've got to get to me bong.
Because we are at Ascot currently for our March auction, Ascot is more famous for horses than horsepower, so today's quiz
Uh-oh.
ties the two worlds of cars and horses. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay,
I hope this is not direct answers, it's just more closest to pin.
Go on.
we shall see. What is the French word for horsepower that most manufacturers use in their brochures? James is closer to bonging, so if I were you, I'd close the gap.
French. Well, cheval was a horse.
You haven't bonged.
Is this literally
He hasn't bonged. Oh, yes, James?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, hi. What did you say?
What is cheval?
Well, chevaux, horsepower.
Well, de chevaux.
Yeah, oui.
As in, there you go.
Indeed.
Oui, très bien.
1 point to James. What car is famous for
revoir.
having 2 horsepower?
De chevaux.
Oh, hi, James.
Oh,
Yes.
hi. Yet again, it's the same answer for every question,
De
by the way.
chevaux. No, the first one was just
It's
singular.
like Groundhog Day. I'll ask it again.
The most powerful car on sale at the moment that is built in the UK is called what? And please, I need your bonbons before you speak.
Built in the UK.
Give it a go.
Is it a McLaren?
No. Thank you. Sort of assembled in the UK might be better. Yes?
What about Koenigsegg?
No.
It's not assembled in the UK.
Lotus Evija.
Could be.
Is it?
Lotus Evija.
Is it?
Question number 4.
Okay.
What is the horsepower of a Lotus Evija?
We didn't know it. Okay.
Matthew?
1,248.
I'll say 1,500.
Neither of you win. You only get one chance.
We
at
literally
deciding
had to be,
this
we had to be on it.
quiz. 2,000 horsepower.
No, that is
But
insane.
can I just say, there are some cars with more horsepower in the world.
I mean, that's all very well, but
just
are you
ridiculous.
really going to be driving through the lanes in Devon?
I know.
For 2,000
Yes, I'm going to
horsepower?
go to the lanes of Devon, and I'm
I
just
know.
going to go.
Utterly ridiculous.
When I worked on Max Power magazine in the, 90s, I used to think 220 horsepower through the front wheels was maximum. That was about all anyone ever needed.
Kind of still is when you drive those
And
cars.
I know, and it's just like, this is now 10 times
No,
the
that's-
amount.
that's
And
utterly ridiculous.
Oh.
Unless you live off Junction 9 off the Autobahn, it's no use, is it?
Wow. Anyway,
Anyway.
let's be joyous.
Off
Oh,
we go.
are you moving us on?
No.
Shots
You're
on.
far in the lead.
Number 5. Which horse has won here at Ascot 5 times and has its own statue?
Frankel.
Yes.
I know that one. You were
Has
quick
its
to
own
that.
Franklin,
That's as quick as you are picking up the phone.
or perhaps a beer.
No,
Steady.
he doesn't put that down.
Which town is Frankel's local town now? Where is he residing? Yes,
Newbury.
Newbury. Oh,
No, Newmarket.
Newmarket.
You see?
I've lost count, but I know James is in the lead. How much? So he is currently at stud. He's 17 years old. God love him.
Wow.
How much is his stud fee for this year?
2 million.
No. This is per outing.
Oh, what per?
Per
Oh,
outing.
okay, right. Can I go again?
No, actually, I don't think you can. I don't think that's the rules that I set.
Per outing. You mean like a showing fee?
It's not showing.
So it's not 2 million. Yes,
I think it's £100,000 per show.
you're going to be closest. It's 350,000.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah, at 17 years old.
I'd do it for free.
So it can't be wheeled out, is it? Or does he ride out, or don't know. Okay.
Roll out.
In 1932, a car was made that carried the word Ascot in its name. What was the car? Yes,
Was it a Rover Mini Ascot or something, or a Rover Metro Ascot?
in 1932.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, I missed
You're
the
welcome.
year. Darn. Oh,
Yes,
Ascot.
but you're not a million miles away.
there was an
Actually-
Ascot Fleming Rover, I'm sure.
It's on the
because
tip of my
it's-
tongue, and
He wasn't that far away, James.
no.
I'm not allowed to go again. Not that I know.
No? Another word for rover, for example.
That's a dog.
Oh, Christ.
Rover.
He meant the animal, obviously not
I
anyone.
don't know.
Austin.
Austin.
Austin 12/4.
We do,
Austin
honestly, we
Ascot.
do know our cars, by the way.
I
We've been thrown a red herring here.
I do
slightly,
throw in
so-
little tricky ones. Okay, question
Thank
number
you.
9. In the late 1920s, a car called the Ascot Gold Cup 6 was produced in very small numbers. What engine do you think it had?
What year was this? 19...
1920s, the
6 horsepower.
Gold Cup 6. Hello? What engine did it have?
Not very big.
You think 6 horsepower?
Possibly.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over. Matthew?
12 horsepower?
No. So it's a 6-cylinder. So
Oh,
that's
right.
the six,
okay.
yeah. 2.4. A whopper.
Okay.
What was this?
Can we move closer to this decade? Do we think?
No.
You've
We're
got a
going
distinct,
backwards
to be
now.
fair, you've got a distinct advantage.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't really hear a great deal. Crack on.
Okay. As a bonus, in which country, in which county, no, in which town was the Ascot Gold Cup 6 made? Just as a bonus.
Which county?
Which town?
Town?
Actually, it's a city.
Coventry?
No.
Birmingham.
No, Letchworth Garden City.
Of course
I
it
know.
was.
Yeah,
That's
that was right there.
ridiculous.
Only reason why I bring that up is because I went to school as a youngster at Letchworth Garden City.
I didn't realise
There
you went
we
to
go.
school.
In
Yeah.
1920.
No, not then. Right, final round. You'll be thrilled to know. Quick fire finale. Okay, so please pick up your
Sorry.
thingy. What is a furlong? Matthew,
It's a distance in racehorsing. I don't know the actual distance.
it's
but
perfect. A
It's
unit measurement
Okay,
of
yeah.
horse racing. Correct. How long is a furlong?
Don't know.
Feet or yards?
Don't know.
500.
Not bad. 660 feet.
Okay.
What is the birthday for all horses in the Northern Hemisphere?
Sorry.
The birthday for all horses.
What are they doing in
the
these
Northern
stories?
Hemisphere.
What? Is this all on one day?
No idea.
Okay, I only knew this because I read a Dick Francis book a few years ago, and every horse has to have the birth date, irrespective of when they're born, of the 1st of January.
Oh, so everything's the 1st of January,
Yeah,
like
and that's
registering a
happened
car.
since 1834 to standardise ages for comparison, e.g., a yearling's race or a 3-year-old's race.
Ah, yeah, makes
It's
sense.
amazing.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair
So
enough.
with that information, when
Right.
is the birthday for all horses in the Southern Hemisphere?
Sorry, the first one asked was the
Northern.
was the 1st of.
What about the
1st of
2nd of
Jan.
January then?
I got so excited my earphones would come off. Incorrect.
No.
Well,
1st
but-
of August. I didn't
Yeah,
learn that in
that's what
Dick
it is,
Francis
6
book.
months long.
Just quite bizarre, isn't it?
What is a colt?
So
That's
Yes.
a baby horse.
If you would like to be more specific, I'll take
foal.
yours. New.
Male.
Yes.
Well,
young male horse.
from the-
What's the name for a young female horse?
Billy.
Yeah, you didn't bong.
Oh.
I got there first.
And finally, what is a gelding?
What?
A gelding. Castrated male. On that note, Matthew, see us out.
Gonna say I should know that.
Right.
Why
and
would
on,
I know
and
that?
on that note, if you, as I
On
said, if
that
you did
note-
enjoy this, please do like, subscribe, and follow us. Our next auction is, as Vicky said earlier, at Farnborough International in May. If this is out in time, please give us a call about consigning your car. If not, then obviously please do come and see us and come and see the cars. As we said, it's the best car show in town. So please do keep like, subscribe, look at our website, get in contact, speak to the guys, and we will hopefully see you next time.
Yes, thank you very much for being with us. And James, thank you for joining us.
Not at all. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Until next time.
Till next
Bye-bye.
time. Bye for now.